Hello everyone, Reza here. In this video, we will focus on solutions in the Power Platform. Solutions are the mechanism through which we can implement application lifecycle management, wherein we can transport our components, our apps, our flows, our bots, connections, and a lot more from one environment to another. It is one of the key concepts that every maker in the Power Platform should be aware of. So let's check it out in action. Where do we begin with creating apps, flows, bots, and more in the Power Platform? Let's take an example of Power Apps. We start in make.powerapps.com. And whenever we come across a scenario wherein we need to create an app, we head here, start creating our app, and connect to our data sources, and so on and so forth. It is very important to understand that whenever you're building something in the Power Platform ecosystem, it is being built in the context of an environment. And that environment to begin with is always the default environment. The default environment is the standard environment that gets set up for every tenant. And in this environment, every user who has a valid license, be it an office license that covers apps and flows, have the rights to create things in this environment. And this is something that cannot be blocked by the administrators. Meaning, the default environment is an open environment wherein anyone can create apps, flows, and more. Recommendation is to rebrand this environment to personal productivity, meaning it should only be leveraged for personal productivity based scenarios and not for business critical applications. To implement application lifecycle management in Power Apps and other Power Platform products, it is important that a good environment strategy is put in place. In my tenant here, I have created 3 different environments. One is a dev environment for development purposes, a test environment where I would deploy my applications and test, and then a production environment wherein once the testing is complete, I will move my applications to the production environment and share the applications with the end users so that they can consume it. A Power Platform environment is a space to store, manage, and share your organization's business data, apps, chatbots, flows, and a lot more. It basically serves as a container to separate apps that might have different roles, security requirements, or target audiences. And environments play a key role in application lifecycle management. In each environment, we can have a Dataverse database set up. And you can only have one database set up per environment. How should we be creating our apps, flows, bots, our solutions, and porting them over from one environment to another in a controlled and governed manner? If you create your apps in make.powerapps.com directly, or if you create your flows in powerautomate.com directly, all of these are being created outside the context of something known as solutions. Solutions are used to transport apps and components from one environment to another. A solution can contain one or more apps as well as other components such as Dataverse tables, web resources, flows, bots, and a lot more. Where should we be creating our apps, flows, bots, and more? We should be creating them directly inside of solutions. Now here I would like to bust a myth. The myth is that a solution is a premium feature, meaning the user creating the solution or the user accessing the artifacts inside a solution require premium licensing because these solutions or containers are being created inside Microsoft Dataverse for that specific environment. Now, Dataverse as a connector for apps and flows is a premium licensed feature. However, creating solutions and working with solutions does not require premium licensing. All it requires is a Dataverse database set up for that environment. I'll cover two scenarios. The first one is I have access to my dev environment, and here I would like to create a solution from scratch. I'll head over to Solutions, click on New Solution. The use case that I will take for this scenario is a SharePoint list that has information about issues that users report. So I would like to create an issue tracking app, and I would also like to create a flow that, let's say, sends a notification email to the admin whenever a new issue is created in the issue tracker list. I've given my solution a display name, issue tracker. Publisher. Every app and other solution components, such as tables you create in Dataverse or any other customizations that you make, ideally would need to be a part of a solution. And because every solution has this option of a publisher, you should create your own publisher rather than use the default CDS publisher option that is provided. So in this case, I'll create a new publisher. I will give a display name, can give a description. A solution publisher includes a prefix. Prefix is a mechanism to help avoid naming collisions. This allows for solutions from different publishers to be installed in an environment with few conflicts. As an example, my publisher here is RD YouTube, so the prefix I will use is RD. So any objects that are created in the solution, be it apps, flows, connection references, will have this specific prefix applied to it, which is RD underscore the name of the object. I'll click Save. And here I will pick my publisher. For now, this is the first version of the solution that I'm creating, so I'm going to stick to that. The solution that you create to begin with would be in unmanaged state, meaning you're free to make any changes to the components within that solution. I'll click Create. This now creates a solution for me called Issue Tracker. If I select this, it will lead me to the Solution Explorer view. And in here is where we should be creating all the artifacts related to the solution. I need a Canvas app to begin with. So I'll head over to New, go to App. I'll pick Canvas app. I'll give my app a name, click Create. In the Studio experience, I can head over to Data and start connecting to my data sources. Now, Dataverse is environment centric because I can create a Dataverse database per environment. We have the current environment tables show up, and they go perfectly hand in hand with the concept of solutions. However, from a SharePoint standpoint, SharePoint does not understand the concept of environments. Now in this scenario, let's say I need dev and test sites for SharePoint. In that case, I would have to be creating a SharePoint site. I'm creating a new SharePoint site. I will add a new list from an existing list. Pick my SharePoint site that has that list. Pick that list, hit Next, and I'll click Create. And this will create that same issue tracking list in a different SharePoint site here, which is acting as my test SharePoint site. Now in my app here, if I want to connect to SharePoint, I will search for SharePoint. Once I pick my connection, it will list out all my SharePoint sites that I can connect to. But here I would like to make it dynamic, meaning I would like to define it based upon a configuration parameter. Because as I move my solutions from dev to test, I would like to define the URL of my new SharePoint site or my SharePoint list that the test environment needs to point to. So for now, the app that I just created, I will go ahead and save this. If I head back and click back again and leave this Power App, and if I head back to my solution that I created in this environment, which is called Issue Tracker, my app will be a part of this solution. Now to create that configuration element related to connecting to my data source, which in this case is my SharePoint list, in solutions, we have an option called environment variables. These can have different values per environment. I will create an environment variable called issue tracker site. And for data types, we have various options to choose from. In this case, I will pick data source. The connector will be SharePoint. I already have my connection here. My parameter type will be site, since I'm connecting to a SharePoint site. And which site am I connecting to? I will click on new site value. And this will list out all the SharePoint sites that I've recently worked with. If you don't see a site listed here, just simply paste the URL of your SharePoint site and click Save. So this now will create an environment variable for me, which is a part of this solution. Now I need another environment variable that points to my issue tracking list in that specific SharePoint site. So once again, I'll create an environment variable, give it a name, pick data source, SharePoint, parameter type will be list. The site I will pick from my environment variable that I created, which was called issue tracker site. And for the list value, this will list out all my SharePoint lists as part of that SharePoint site. And here is my issue tracking SharePoint list. I'll click Save. Back to my Power App, I will select it and click Edit. In Data Sources, I will go to Add Data to connect to SharePoint. Pick my connection. Here, instead of picking your site directly or connecting to your site, head over to Advanced. This will list out all your environment variables. Solutions is not a premium concept. Connecting to an environment variable as a data source is not a premium option either. So here, I will simply pick my SharePoint site. This will list out all the lists in that SharePoint site. Don't pick a list from here. Head over to Advanced and it will list out all the environment variables that you have. And here is my issue tracker list, environment variable. I will pick that and click Connect. And this now will connect to that issue tracker SharePoint list directly in that SharePoint site that I specified as my environment variable. Now that I have my list connected, here I'll add a simple gallery and connect it to that SharePoint list. I can see all that data from my SharePoint list right here. I'll go ahead and save and publish my Power App. Back to my solution, I'll add a flow as well. So I'll go to New, Automation, Cloud Flow, and pick an automated cloud flow. Here I will click Skip. I will give my flow a name. The trigger of my flow will come from SharePoint when a new item is created. Now this is very similar to what I did in Power Apps, where I was providing the information of my SharePoint site and list. Instead of picking my SharePoint site address directly, I will go to Enter Custom Value, and here under Dynamic Content, we have all our environment variables. Here is my issue tracker site. And the same thing I will do with the list as well. And here, I would like to send an email. And this email, let's say I would like to send it out to Reza. In the subject, I will also specify the name of the SharePoint site. So whenever this email goes out, we can actually see that it's going out from my development site or my test site once I move the solution to a different environment. The title of the issue in the body of the email. I'll click Save. The email that's going out to Reza, let's try and make this dynamic as well. I will head back to Solutions and create a new environment variable, calling it email admin. Here, I'll pick type text and I'll specify a value for this and click Save. And for my flow, instead of hard coding the email, I will pick the email from dynamic content under environment variable. Here is my environment variable. I'll click Save. So this now completes my entire solution. Now let's test this out. For my app, I will play this app. So the app will load all the issues from my issue tracking SharePoint site, which is my dev site. And whenever a new item is created, it will send an email to my admin email environment variable that I defined, which in this case is Reza. Here's the email, and we can clearly see that it's pointing to my site in dev, which has that issue tracking SharePoint list. Now let's see how we can move this solution from the dev environment to my test environment or my production environment. Before you export your solution, for your environment variables, it is important to take this one extra step. Head over to Edit. For the current value, remove it from this solution. By doing this, when you export it out to a different environment, it will prompt you to provide a value for this, which is exactly what we need when we move from one environment to another. So I will repeat the same step for all my 3 environment variables. Once I'm done with that, I will go back to my solutions, pick my issue tracker solution, click export. Here, first, make sure you publish all the changes that you've made, basically all the customizations that I've made inside that solution. Once that's done, you can also check for issues by running the solution checker. I will recommend you to do this as well. Once you're done with this, you can click next. When you export it, you have 2 options. You can export it either as a managed solution or as an unmanaged solution. Managed solution is the recommended option. A managed solution can't be changed unless it has customizable objects. Basically, if you are moving the solution from development to a test or a production environment, you will want to use this option. Unmanaged, if you are trying to move this solution to a different development environment. Here I'll pick managed and click export. So this will now begin the process of exporting my solution. Now here, it's important to note that you will have to wait, and we get this notification message here that says currently it is exporting this solution. Once the export is successful, you will get the option here to download. So I will go ahead and download this solution. Now I need to move this solution to my test or my prod environment. I will move over to my test environment. I have changed the environment using the environment picker. I will go to solutions here and import my solution. So I will pick my solution that I exported, click next. This will give me the details of that solution, the name, the type, and who the publisher was. I'll click next. This now is re-establishing the connections. I'll pick my existing one and click next. This now will load up all my environment variables. So I had the email here. Let's say in my test environment, the notification should go out to a different user. I'll pick the email address of another user called Sarah in my tenant. My SharePoint site. Here, I will pick my test SharePoint site URL and paste it in here. This will now connect to that SharePoint site and load all the lists in this specific SharePoint site, which is my test SharePoint site. I'll pick my issue tracking SharePoint list and click import. And this now will begin the process of importing my issue tracker solution from my dev to my test environment. The import is currently ongoing. I can see my solution come in. It says my solution has been imported successfully. Here are all my artifacts, my environment variables, my app, my flow. If I was to play this app, you will note that there are no items in this. The reason being, the data is coming from the test issue tracker list. I'll create a sample item here. And now if I refresh that Power App, we can see that in the test environment, the data is coming from the test SharePoint site. When a new item is created, I have a flow as well that should trigger. The flow was also pointing to that environment variable. I'm logged in Sarah's mailbox. For the test environment, Sarah is supposed to receive that email, and here is that email that Sarah has received. And we can also clearly see the URL that is dynamically changing based on that environment variable. And since this is a managed solution, you can see that I cannot make any changes here in my test environment. Now let's take our second scenario. I already have an app, I already have a flow, I already have a SharePoint site, or I have a table in Dataverse that my app or my flow is connected to. And all of these things I have created outside of the context of a solution. And more or less, you would have created it in the default environment. Now, how do I package this up? How do I make it solution aware? In my scenario, I have an app called my tasks app. In this app, I am connecting to multiple data sources. I'm connecting to a SharePoint list. And I'm also connecting to a table in Dataverse. And here, the user has the option to view the task information, maybe make modifications to it, or create new tasks on the fly. To include this app as a part of a solution, so I can start implementing ALM, Application Lifecycle Management, I will head over to Solutions in my default environment and create a new solution. I'll pick my publisher. I'll click Create. So here's my task management solution. So I need my app. For that, I will go to Add Existing, go to App, and it's a Canvas app, so I'll select Canvas. Now these apps are outside of my solution, so basically outside Dataverse. I can search. I will pick my app and click Add. This app has a connection to a list called Service Desk in my SharePoint site called RD Tech. So I'll create an environment variable. Data source, SharePoint, site, and I will give it the current value. And I will create another environment variable for my list. Pick my SharePoint list, click Save. Now for the app in my solution, I will edit this. My connections that I made in my Power App were directly made to the SharePoint site. But now I want to change it so that it comes from those environment variables that I just created. So for that, I will head over to Data Sources and simply remove the SharePoint connection, add the connection back to SharePoint, and pick the site URL from my environment variable and pick the list from my environment variable as well. No errors in my app, the connection is successful. For Dataverse, I do not have to worry because Dataverse already is environment specific. Next, I will save and publish my Power App. I have a flow called Service Desk Report that runs on a schedule, gets items from my Service Desk SharePoint list that are pending, and sends it out in an email to Reza. For my solution, I will add my flow, which is called Service Desk Report. I will add it. And for this flow, I will edit it. The hard-coded references to my SharePoint site. This will come from my environment variable. Same thing for my list name. And click Save. Now there's one thing important to note here. I will get a warning from the flow checker that says use connection references. Flows used in a solution use connection references instead of connections. In this case, if I look at the two connections that this flow uses, it uses the Outlook connector and the SharePoint connector. Now both of these is what I would like to change. Once you remove those connections, go to flow checker. It says use connection references. Click on this link, how to fix it. Directly take us here. You can simply click on new connection reference. Same thing for the Outlook connector as well. I'll save my flow. Ready to export to another environment. First step, my environment variables, I will ensure that I remove the current value that's set. Another important thing to note, for my Canvas app, I was connecting to Dataverse, so I have that table that I created for work tasks. So it's important to make sure that I add required objects. I'll click OK. So if you note, it has gone ahead and added my work task table as well as part of the solution. If there are any other dependencies, for example, dependencies related to my table here, I will make sure I add those as well. In my case, there were a few choice sets my table was referencing. Once I've added all my dependencies, I will export my solution, make sure I publish it, also run the issue checker, click Next, export as managed. Once exported, I'll download, go to my production environment, head over to Solutions, import that solution, click Next. Here are my two connection references, click Import. If you enjoyed this video, then do like, comment and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and thank you so much for watching.